Hey, so when it comes to learning, usually when I ask people, "Oh, is learning Tableau fun?" Oh, people you will mostly they will say, "Okay, am I back?"
Yes, you're back.
Okay. Wow. Okay, this has been really interesting. Let me share my screen
That's
again.
okay.
Johanna, do you want
happen.
to turn off? Do you want to turn off
Okay.
your camera so
Yeah,
at least to help with the
yeah,
bandwidth?
true. Let me turn off my camera. Hey, here we
Yeah.
go. So yeah, so let's talk about learning, okay? When people usually when I ask them about learning, they usually find it, well, of course, learning Tableau, it's fun. When they first found about Tableau, they found that it to be a very cool toy that they just learned, and you can do a lot of stuff. And just uncovering new things that you can do with Tableau has always been very exciting. But then your learning journey oftentimes is not always that easy. Sometimes you can find a hurdle, some roadblock when you find something which is very, very challenging. And even at times, going on a pursuit to learn something, it can be pretty boring because you need to do that repetitively. So for that, that's okay, here we go. Yep. Again, so for that, let's talk about learning. Before we deep dive and explore a lot of things, a bit of introduction. If you haven't known me yet, so I'm currently a data analytics consultant at the Data School Down Under here in Sydney. I'm currently a Tableau Public Ambassador. I'm a newbie, of course. I'm a newcomer. So I first started my learning journey when I was still a student. So you could say that most of my lifetime is mostly learning so far. So enough about me. Let me talk about yourself. What is your preferred learning style? So do you usually learn from A? Do you like to jump into new experiences, immerse yourself, and just enjoy being spontaneous? Or are you someone who probably are more cautious? You want to observe, you gather information first, and then you look at that at different angle. Or maybe you're C. You like to try out new ideas, you like to apply them into something which is practical, into something that works. And lastly, D, you like to turn your observations into frameworks, theories. You like to make patterns out of all this. So I'll give you just a few moments, maybe to just have a look and maybe think what actually suits you better. So just a disclaimer, I'm not in any way qualified, of course, to give like a very definitive measure into this. This is just going to be my personal take on the different learning framework. Okay, so I think that's enough time for you now. So let's take a look. So what A actually is. So A is activist. And if you like observing, you're a reflector. And C is pragmatist. D is theorist. So again, with any different personality types, usually people often they tend to go into the trap of boxing themselves into just one type. But it doesn't work that way, okay? So it's most of the time, like let's say this one, I'm using a framework from Honey and Mumford. So for this one, they all happen in different learning stages. And it can happen from anywhere. And often it's also not mutually exclusive. So like let's say when you reflect, like in your reflector, often for you to be able to reflect, you need to work on something first, something like a hands-on project, something which resembles more of an activist. So it's something that can happen hand in hand. But there are some personality, this is not a personality. This is a learning style. There are some which you are more comfortable and some which are you're not very comfortable. It's something which is outside your comfort zone. So for me personally, my primary and secondary is reflector and theories. I'll be giving you some example for that. I'll be focusing more on activists, which is not my primary one, and reflector, which is my primary one. So let's start with activists. So I first started my journey when I was a student. So okay, I got introduced to Tableau, I know a bit about it, but I feel like I'm not learning that much because I don't have any exposure for hands-on project. So okay, I decided to find some hands-on project, and that's where I found this for social good project. But again, this is something which is outside my comfort zone. It's scary to do something, to work on projects, because it's rather big project. It's a real nonprofit, and I was just a student. So and then when I first published it into Tableau Public, well, most people usually like to say, "Oh, it's very scary to publish your Tableau Public." This, well, for me at the time, it wasn't that scary though, because at the time I didn't have any followers, so I'm cool with that. But it's a bit of a different story when I have to submit the visualization into the form, because I know after I submit this form, that nonprofit will be able to see, and then after that also have to share it on Twitter. It's all very scary. It's like your work is being judged outside, and I was just procrastinating or being worried over just clicking this very tiny button, because it's something which is, yeah, just frightening. So if I put it in a nutshell, so that's me making a slightly sad face because I'm going to try new things. And then in my normal mode, what I usually do is I test the water first. Maybe if I'm learning to swim, I put my feet there, I put my hand there and see how it goes. I'm scared. And then after that, most of the time is I back down because it's something which is scary. So what I do on how to approach this is, that's me, a neutral pace, not knowing what I will do next. And I'll just deep dive into what's next, just put myself in that situation where I can't really back down. So I guess it's in a way being committed and just push yourself at the end of the day. And yes, there will be a lot of sad stories, but at the end, I survive, and there's a lot of learning that I get from there, either whether it's successful or whether it's a failure also. So what I learned here, just plunge into the water, come back out, but I still learned something. And what motivates me actually do matter also. So for Tableau, they have a lot of community projects. So you can do something which is interesting for you. Like if you like games, maybe you want to go with game and night Fizz. For me, my go-to is Fizz for social good. But there's also other elements that the other community projects that you can also try. So let's go to the next one. So after I already do all these community projects, after that, this is where I take a step back. I take a pause, I rest, but this is actually where most of my learning actually happens, not when I'm doing so, not when I'm working on something. So from here, I reflect on my experience. So from there, I notice certain things, and then I also look at other people's presentation, other people's visualization. And that's the beauty of it, is usually because you work on the same project. So, and you also work on the same data set. And because of that, you can also see how they actually visualize a certain insight in another way. And that way you can actually learn from there. Because most other people, if you were a student, most other people are actually more experienced. And then after that, I also like to watch review sessions. So some community projects, like let's say Iron Quest, Makeover Monday, they have review session. So that's where people, when after they submit their visualization, the host will review and provide some feedback there. So from there, I gradually learn what works, what doesn't work. And then I also try to incorporate that into I train myself and just look at the Tableau public physics and see, oh, okay, so this works, this doesn't work. I like this, I don't like that. And then after that, don't forget to seek feedback. So there's a lot of avenues where you can actually seek for feedback. I will give the list a bit later on. And then after that, this is where the theory comes from. So after I already reflect, it's at the end of the day, it's just like a list of points still scattered around. This is where I group everything and make them into some patterns. So from my whole experience, I mostly learned from this for social group project. Yeah, I think I'll present that also later on. But from there, from my experiences, I collect them together, and I even did a presentation on how I approach this for social good project, because it's in a way it's also for my own learning. Some people like to say that teaching other people is also the best way to learn, because you also need, because that way you train yourself, you structure it, you need to be able to explain it in a logical manner. But for me to be able to also but if you're a theorist, if you want to learn more, you also usually you prefer books, you like theoretical frameworks. That way it can enrich the basic knowledge that you already have. Then going to the next one. So this is pragmatism. So this is where you finally solve some problems. So I already collect some information. I already group them together. I already understand, I get the hang of how it actually works. And then from there, I break it down into small tips, which is more handy, which is more practical, before I can apply it back again and work on a new project. So these are some resources that you can actually get from Tableau. Again, this may not be the most accurate, because again, with different people, they may have different preferences. You may have different thing that actually ignite your passion. And again, I'm not an activist, so I'm just assuming that all community projects is just a go-to. But for me, being a reflector, I found that community projects with monthly intervals, I tend to learn more from those community projects. Because for this one, usually I take a pause first. And because the time spent is pretty long, I'm not chased by deadline. That way I can just relax, rest, and think about it. Like let's say for a project which probably takes around 30 hours. For sure, I'm not going to do it in just one go. I can do it in 1 week, the second week, third week. And in between, I can still reflect back on what I'm doing, and also look at other people's work. So there are a lot of feedback sessions that you can actually ways of you can actually get feedback. So the first one is you can use a hashtag TFF feedback. So this is initiated by Sam Parsons. So when you tweet your visualization, just use that. And a lot of people usually they reply and give feedback. Another one is Biz Office Hours and also feedback loop. So this one, Biz Office Hours, it's run by Michelle and Nicole, and also Zach. So you can go to them for any visualization and you can get one-on-one feedback. Feedback loop, it's a very interesting one. I just attended it once, but it's very exciting. So you'll be grouped into 2 groups. So and then in there you can actually give feedback to each other. So in that way you learn how to give feedback and also get feedback, and also certain occasions. While for theories, there are some things that you can also capture, like books, blog posts. Tableau user group talks are usually great ways in how you can learn. But usually theories, you also learn more when it comes to a more structured training, because that way you can understand the theory. And then also YouTube videos, which are more lecture-like. While for pragmatists, it enables you to experiment as you like in Tableau Public. So that's where you can actually go. Although doesn't mean, although even if you're not a pragmatist, doesn't mean that you don't have to experiment. Like how I approach it is, I still try to make something new in my Tableau Public, do something which is a different way, a different style. but then I may not be as experimental or something, or do something just more radical as maybe people whose primary learning style is pragmatist. And at the end, it will just take it as a holistic approach, and don't see it like one by one. You're an activist, you're a theorist, or pragmatist. So key takeaways here. First is find your unique way. Like for me, I learned that I need to take a step back and reflect, and it's okay. I may take a longer time than other people, and that's also fine, because I found that's the most comfortable pace that I have, and I learned a lot along the journey. The second is keep the cycle going. And for this, you can spice it up. Just because you at the past you found something is comfortable doesn't mean that you can't try the other things. Because at the end, if you make it more if you make it a bit more diverse, you try this one and that one, you just never know what will actually work best for you. Or maybe, yeah, sometimes just get boring and you try another thing, and at the end it also helps you to learn in other aspects. And also remember what motivates you in the beginning. Sometimes further on along in your learning journey, sometimes it's quite hard to keep yourself motivated, because sometimes that motivation has become something that is more like you have to do it. It's more like, it feels more like homework. It Yeah, and if it start to feel like homework, it start to feel like, oh, I don't want to do it or have to force myself to do it. But when you first start your learning journey, it's usually, oh, I want to learn this, I want to be able to do that. So the perspective has changed from, oh, I have to do that, into I want to do that. And lastly, enjoy your journey. Whether it's the ups and downs, it's normal to have up and down in your life, in your learning journey, or maybe if you go a bit right to the left, whatever it is, just enjoy every moment of it. And thank you for listening. So this is my Twitter, this is my LinkedIn, this is my QR code with all my social media, and happy to answer any questions.